Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 717, and today's date is July 15th, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. Government is Ready to Push Agenda to Remove Assad from Syria. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Tomorrow, which is Thursday, I will be uploading an interview with Sean from SGT Report. If you are on the X22report.com alert system, you will get an email. If you are subscribed to X22 Report Spotlight, which is a different channel than the X22 Report YouTube channel, you should get a email from YouTube. If you do not, you can just come to YouTube, type X22 Report Spotlight, and it will bring you right to the channel, or you can come to the X22report.com site and you will see the video on the right-hand side. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we see out in Greece, the situation is starting to deteriorate. We see the European Commission right now. They have offered to provide Greece a €7 billion bridge loan. If they just adopt the reforms, we will help out, don't worry. But what we're seeing right now is that things are not going well in Greece. Tsipras came out and made a statement about his talks with the creditors, the central bankers. And for one, I was not stunned whatsoever. A lot of people are like, ooh, I can't believe this is coming out. But one, we know that he was threatened. Two, the central bankers told him he has no choice whatsoever. You need to follow what we're telling you, or there will be problems in Greece. We'll invade Greece. We will take you out. We see that Tsipras says that the lenders have given a message that those countries under bailout, there is no point in holding elections. That bailout countries basically have no rights whatsoever. This is their mindset. Their mindset is we control everything. And if you do not follow along, guess what? There will be trouble. And in Greece right now, the Syriza party, they condemn the bailout deal. Some of them even took it, ripped it up, and said, we're not going with this. That's it. We had it. And Tsipras is saying, listen, if this deal doesn't go through, it will be very difficult to remain in power. Actually, I do believe that he just wants out right now. That he realizes that he is just a puppet to the central bankers. He has no say. This is what he's realizing. He's realizing that at this point in time, they will take his life if he doesn't abide by what the central bankers want. And this is why I think Varoufakis got out. I think this is why Tsipras is saying, listen, if we don't go with this, I'm out too. I'm not going with this whatsoever. We see already the Greek police, they're taking precautionary measures in order to prevent problems in the area. We understand that protesters, are amassing at the square, waiting for the vote in Parliament about what they're going to do about this bailout. And we're hearing information that, and this is coming from Tsipras, that the Greek banks will most likely be closed for another month. Now, other government officials are out there saying, no, they're not going to be closed for another month. We're going to open them up this Friday. And like I said, if they were going to open the banks, they definitely would do it on a Friday because they want to see what the reaction is. If they see a huge bank run, they can close it down and keep them closed for however long they need. And we'll have to watch that situation very closely because, again, the people are the ones suffering. The people are the ones who cannot get their money out. The people are having the problems here. Now, the IMF is saying, yeah, this whole deal, we might have to walk away from it. Now, is it because they believe the deal's not good? Or is there something else behind all of this? Well, they understand when they look at this that Greece is falling apart. And if this deal goes through, where did it get them? nowhere. So what is the IMF actually doing? Well, they come out with documents saying that, yeah, Greece is going to need a debt write-off. And of course, if this does occur, other countries are going to say, hey, you know something? We want a debt write-off just like Greece. But the question is this really what the IMF wants? Is this really what they believe, that, yes, we need to write down the debt? No, they're doing it for another reason. They're doing it because they realize that if Greece's debt is not forgiven, there will be harsh economic conditions imposed on Greece. The people are going to suffer. And we know eventually the people are going to take over and say we've had enough. And guess where they're going to turn? They're going to turn to Russia. And the IMF is trying to stop this. This is their whole plan. This is why they're saying there needs to be some debt write-off, because they don't want to lose Greece to Russia. This is what they're trying to prevent. And when we look at this, we can see that if this vote comes up and they turn down the bailout, they might turn to Russia no matter what. If they decide to go with the bailout agreement against the people, you know what's going to happen in Greece. The people are going to start rioting. People are not going to be happy. People are going to raid the banks, the stores, because they realize, yes, they'll be getting this debt, but they'll be getting the relief from the additional debt that they're going to receive, but it's not coming to them. It's going to the banks. Their country's going to be sold off, and they get nothing. They're in the same exact position. Things will not change for them, and they know this. And actually, down the line, it will just get worse. And we're seeing that Greece is not the only country having this problem in Europe. We see that other countries like France and Italy, and especially Italy, because when we look at this, we see Italy's Banking Association, ABI, they have non-performing loans amounting to 193.7 billion euro in May, 25 billion more than in the same month in 2014. This is the highest level since 1996. And we can see that there are many countries like this. I mean, Greece right now, the percent of non-performing loans is about 27%. Ireland is about 24%. Go down to Italy, we're looking at 16%. Portugal at 11%. And we can see at this point in time, a lot of these countries are in trouble. And the Eurozone right now remains full of accidents waiting to happen. And some of them have the potential to become truly gigantic accidents. So when they tell us that Europe is fine, they're recovering, well, we see, no, this is not the case. Because, I mean, just take a look at it. Unemployment skyrocketing, youth unemployment skyrocketing, factory orders, manufacturing down, retail starting to slip, housing bubble all over the place. It doesn't look good. We see here in the United States the same thing is occurring. Of course, we have the corporate media controlled by the government. We have the central bankers. We have the ability to create money by pushing a button. And I shouldn't say we, it's the central bankers that create the money. And when we look at this, we see the economic confidence is now hovering at 8-month lows. Small business optimism cratering to a 15-month low. I mean, Gallup's U.S. Economic Confidence Index is on a downward trajectory. It is not getting better, and it just hit a negative 11. This shows us that people are looking at the economy and they're saying, something just doesn't feel right. Even though the president, the central bankers, the stock market is all showing us that things are fine, Something doesn't feel right. Something is wrong here. Why are all these stores closing? Why can't I sell my home? Why are the prices starting to fall? Where did the traffic go? Why did I just lose my job? Why can't I find another job at the same pay? Why can I only get a part-time job? Why can't I find a job at all? I don't understand why I'm losing my house. All of this is starting to happen to many, many people. But of course, it's being all swept under the rug. They don't want you to know things are happening here. We see Empire Manufacturing. It beat expectations by 0.86. This is the first time since January. But new orders and the number of employees fell in July. And you have to remember, the Empire Manufacturing was printing negative for the last 3 months. We're seeing a tiny bump up. This whole entire manufacturing is in a downward trajectory. And it started back in when we hit the top in September of 2014, and it's been on a downward trend. We're seeing in the real estate market, things are not improving. Yesterday we talked about Wells Fargo, on how they're seeing, mortgage applications completely imploding. We're getting information that mortgage applications decreased by 1.9% in the week ending July 10th. This is the best time of the year to sell your home. We should see mortgage applications skyrocketing right now. People should be purchasing houses like crazy. But as we know, if we go back to August of 2013 going forward, we know mortgage companies, mortgage departments have been laying off tens of thousands of people. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, JP Morgan Chase. Just go back, look it up on Google. If we were truly, and that was the same month that Obama said that the housing, as he gave a speech in Phoenix, we were in a recovery, a housing recovery. Well, how can that be? As he's saying this, people are being laid off in those departments. If we're truly in a housing recovery, people would be taking out mortgages. Because we know that people don't have the cash. Look what happened in 2008. A lot of people lost their wealth, their credit, their homes, their jobs. They have part-time jobs. We know they're not going out and purchasing homes. The youth of America, they cannot find work coming out of school. This is why they have all these loan modifications for student loans. This is why they're looking to write off the student loans. Because they understand these people coming out of school cannot find these high-paying jobs, and their student loans are all coming due. They're living with their parents, they're getting whatever part-time job they can, and they're showing the government, listen, this is all I make, so this is all I can afford to pay. And the government kind of is in a bind because the student loan market is in a bubble, and they don't have the ability to write this off, to go to the taxpayers and say, listen, we need you to pick up the tab for this. Because as we know, those students are responsible to the end of time. We see that all of this is falling apart and it is accelerating. Now we understand out in California, they are pushing a bill, SB 277, where each child who is going to school needs to be vaccinated. No matter if you're going to public or private, it makes no difference whatsoever. It is completely mandatory. And of course, this removes the rights of the people. It doesn't allow them to make a choice anymore. Actually, it removes the right and it tells you that the government is making this choice for you, for your safety. And of course, it's not for your safety. We all know this. We know what vaccines are. We know what chemicals are in them. And a lot of them are not good for you. A lot of poisons in these vaccines. But what's really interesting about this, and it looks like California is kind of a test bed of all of this, they're trying to pass another law. And they're pushing a bill, SB 792, which would eliminate the adult's right to exempt themselves from one, some, or all vaccines. The bill eliminates medical autonomy, crushes religious freedom, undermines personal freedom, and burdens quality providers with non-obligatory optional series of medical interventions in the form of mandated vaccines that are not even 100% effective. Because as we know, when they talked about the measles outbreak, we know in the last 10 years, those people who got the measles, there were no deaths. Those people who received the measles vaccine, 150 people died. But what's very interesting about this is that those adults who are going to refuse the vaccine, there will be criminal penalties for those people who don't want to be vaccinated. This is a violation of all of your rights. This is a violation of a person just being a human being, where they're telling you you will be injected with this chemical. And we can see maybe this is why they're doing it, because remember that Ebola breakout, which never appeared in the United States, maybe a couple cases here and there, and of course the CDC was out there telling us they have a computer model and it's going to be millions of people, and it allowed the vaccine companies to get more patents, more funding from the government to create these vaccines. We're starting to hear rumblings that Ebola is now back in Liberia and these different countries. Now, what happens if they use the Ebola outbreak, even if there isn't one, just the idea and the corporate media pushing it, and they make it mandatory now for everyone to get a vaccine for this? And this law then goes from California to other states and then becomes a federal law. I mean, this is a huge possibility. And we can see this is part of their agenda, to remove your rights, to do what they want to you without you making a choice. It reminds me of Obamacare. If you don't take what we're giving you, you are penalized because you need to do what we are saying. And this is exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to chip away at everyone's ability to have a choice. And they're continually pushing as hard as they can right now. And these are not the only rights that the government is trying to chip away at. I mean, we've seen in the past, and it's continuing, they're trying to remove the Second Amendment. They're trying to remove the First Amendment. And with the Second Amendment, we see that they are continually making these zones called gun-free zones. And they're saying that you'll be safe in these gun-free zones. But when you really look at these gun-free zones, what they're really telling you is that all these people in these zones are stripped of their rights to acquire a weapon and to carry it around. That's really what it is. Because, listen, let's say it's not called the gun-free zone. Let's use different terminologies like murderers welcome zones or criminal come-on-in zones, law-abiding citizen loss of rights zones. Folks can't fight back in these zones. Protecting yourself is illegal here in these zones. I mean, yes, they use a lot of wording and they tell you what it means, just like the Affordable Care Act, the Patriot Act, the gun-free zone. But really what this is doing is they're telling you that these specific zones have been created to remove your rights. Just like they put up a fence and they say, this is the free speech zone. They're saying that you can have your rights in this area, but everywhere outside of it, you do not have your rights. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to convince the people and the younger generation that they do not have the rights. And they're going to continually do this unless we show the young and everyone else we need to defend these rights. Because just having the rights doesn't mean you actually have them. You need to defend them at every moment. And what's coming out now is we understand that the United States government central bankers have been tracking us. The NSA has been tracking us. And we come to find out that each American is assigned a risk assessment while traveling inside the U.S. The Electronic Privacy Information Center, EPIC, seeks documents about the analytical framework for intelligence, which incorporates personal information from government agencies, commercial data brokers, and the Internet. The agency then uses secret analytic tools to assign risk assessments to travelers, including U.S. citizens traveling solely within the United States. Police are using more than 28 automated risk assessment programs on everyone that travels inside the U.S. Everyone is given a bio-terror risk assessment, and they're keeping records of this. They use something called passenger name record. It provides advanced information about cargo and related persons and entities for risk assessment and targeting purposes. The results of cargo enforcement exams for the combination of license plate, Department of Motor Vehicle, registration data, and biographical data. DHS and police just admitted they're using your driver's license, license plate, biographical data, and any public source, social media, to give everyone a risk assessment to see what type of person you are if you are risky to the authorities. This is really what they're doing. I mean, they've taken it to the next level. And this is definitely a police state that we are in. And we can see at this point in time, they are tracking the movements. They're correlating all your information to find out who is a threat to their authority. This is what they're doing at this point in time. And we understand that other countries are doing this. We understand a lot of the countries have created these draconian laws, which are removing the rights of the people. They're taking precautions because they understand as the system collapses, they're going to need to control the people. And we understand out in the UK that they purchased water cannons to keep control of the people. And Theresa May is out there saying, and she's from the House of Commons, saying that without safeguards, the cannons could cause harm to the public. She's saying she rejects the use of water cannons. And right now, she's saying that these cannot be used at this time. But we know the London mayor, Boris Johnson, paid a lot of money to have these water cannons ready to go. And a lot of other countries have this. A lot of other countries are training their police force to handle civil disobedience because they know this system cannot be sustained. They know it's coming down. I mean, look what is happening in Cyprus, Greece, Italy, France. Europe is cracking. It's cracking here in the United States. And they understand this. They know it. And this is why they are getting prepared. And this is why you need to be prepared. This is why you need to get food, supplies, medical supplies, toiletries, have cash on hand, gold and silver. Because when the banks close and the food shelves are wiped clean, you need to make sure that you are prepared for this type of situation. I mean, if you haven't started, you can go to lifereliance.com. They have prepackaged food ready to go. Not just food, but other supplies that you can buy all at once instead of going and stocking up on canned goods and other foods. If you've been doing this all along, then keep on doing it. Don't stop. Because as we know, this is coming. We have shown, going back 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from many other people, that this system is cracking and falling apart. And this is why everyone needs to prepare, because it's coming to a point in time where it will hit fully in Europe and here in the United States, Canada, Australia, and many other areas. Now, out in Afghanistan, we see there's a new report coming out showing that the U.S. government blew about $1 billion in taxpayer funds on ghost schools in Afghanistan. And we know that most of the funds in Afghanistan completely go missing. And we can see at this point in time that BuzzFeed News obtained internal Ministry of Education data for 2011 that has never been made public. And Afghanistan data shows about 1,100 schools. Almost 1 in every 12 was a ghost school. An education facility that the Afghan government publicly claimed was open, but it just was not operating. And the U.S. poured the most aid money into these areas. They're still paying the teachers' salaries who are not even teaching in the ghost schools. So the U.S. government central bankers, they have tons of money to pay for ghost schools. They have tons of money to give to aid to other countries. But they can't fix the infrastructure. They can't help our veterans. They can't help the city of Detroit, Baltimore, and many others from completely falling apart. They can't help the American people. But they have no problem wasting all of this money everywhere else. It's amazing. And an internal education ministry task force calculated that at least $12 million in salaries were going to the so-called ghost teachers annually. $12 million a year. This is just unbelievable. Now we understand the United States, along with Ukraine, they're putting together an international tribunal to look into the MH17 crash. And of course, as we know, that is made up of Malaysia, US/Ukraine, Australia, Netherlands, and Belgium. Russia's not included in this. They decided to do this separate and apart from the UN Security Resolution 2166, requiring a halt of all military activity around the crash area and ensuring the safety of all participants of the international investigation. China is now backing Russia, saying, yes, we should be following the 2166 resolution. Why aren't we? Why are we creating something different at this point in time? Everyone should have been following along and investigating all along according to this. But guess what? They don't want to follow along with that. They want to keep everything a secret and come out with their propaganda. And that propaganda is going to come out and say, yes, it was the South Eastern people. Yes, it was the Russian people. Our proof? We don't have any. That is definitely what's going to happen. Or if they do have proof, it is going to be blurry, grainy, black and white satellite photos showing absolutely nothing. But they'll point out that this dot was a Russian missile system and this dot was a Russian plane. But think about it. What would Russia or the Southeastern people get out of this by destroying this plane? Nothing. They would get absolutely nothing out of this. What would Ukraine get out of it? They can say that Russia's evil. They can say the people in the Southeastern are terrorists. And look, they just shot this plane out of the sky. And this is why this case has been completely dropped for all this time. Because they know and they understand who actually did it, and they're trying to cover it up. We see the situation in Ukraine is actually getting worse with the right sector right now. And like I said yesterday, I wouldn't be surprised if Poroshenko comes out and declares martial law. And we can see that this might be all ginned up to start a new war against the Southeastern people. Because we can see the right sector right now is saying that, listen, we're going to remove Poroshenko and his supporters. He will not be able to escape the country as the previous president. We will take him to a dark basement and execute him. Maybe the U.S. government, because as we know, they want Poroshenko to take back the southeastern area. They want him to take back Crimea. He hasn't been doing it. And now they're using the right sector to say, hey, your time is up. Either you push forward with the agenda and attack the southeastern people, use the laws that you've passed, or you're out, and we will replace you with someone else that will push the agenda forward. And it looks like this is how it is starting. We're seeing that Ukrainian troops are continually shelling all different villages in the Donetsk area. And they're using weapons like mortars, machine guns, tanks, and they're continually hitting areas where the public reside. I mean, they're just continually hitting all these areas. We see out in Tokyo, thousands of protesters have rallied in the Japanese capital, Tokyo, to express their anger at a set of government-proposed security bills that would give greater power to the country's military forces. And we talked about this, how Abe wants to push forward Article 9 to say, Japan now can go out and fight. They will no longer be a passive nation. And we can see they've been taking polls in Japan, and it looks like more than half of the Japanese consider the security bills unconstitutional, and they do not want this to happen. But again, the United States government, central bankers, the Japanese government, the central bankers, they want this bill because they know what's coming. They know war is coming, and they need to pass it. We see that Iran now has signed oil contracts with Europe. We understand that United States government, a lot of Congress who has been basically taken over by foreign entities, they're going to try to keep the sanctions on Iran. They're going to try to stop the peace deal from going through. And what's going to happen here is Iran is just going to do business with all other countries except for the United States. That's what's going to happen. The central bankers will not get their way. They will eventually have to go in and invade Iran. They'll set up some type of an event, and they're back to the same goal. Remove the government, take over the country, put their natural resources on the dollar, set up a central bank. This is the plan, the main plan. We understand out in Libya, UN, other countries like the United States, UK, are all saying, yes, we have a new peace deal. But again, it does not include the government of Tripoli. And the reason why they're not signing it, it's because it says they are removed from power and there's a new puppet government coming in. And right now, they're saying there's a peace deal, but when the actual government who is in Tripoli doesn't agree, there really is no peace deal. And this is why the United States has been placing drones very close to Libya, because they're getting ready, prepared to go in there. We see that Obama has had a phone call last week with Putin talking about Syria. And he's saying that he's encouraged by Putin's phone call. And he's saying that it offers us an opportunity to have a serious conversation with them. He explained to Putin that, listen, Assad has been losing large portions of land. The Islamic State has taken over. The Free Syrian Army is closing in on him. And I'm sure the conversation was like, listen, you need to step aside right now. We're going after Assad one way or another. And we'll have to see how Putin reacts to this, because he has supported Assad. He's behind Assad. We know that Saudi Arabia has tried to blackmail and try to coerce him to give up support to Assad. And we're going to have to watch the situation very carefully, because already we see that President Obama now says that, listen, since we have this peace deal with Iran, they should play a role in a political solution to Syria's ongoing civil war. And we know that Syria and Iran are very close. Iran has Syria's back. And I'm sure they want the leaders of Iran to go to Syria and say, listen, there doesn't have to be blood. Just step down. They tried this with the Geneva II talks. It didn't work out. Assad said, I'm elected. I don't need to step down. Putin has recently said, Assad is the legally elected president and nobody has the right to have or tell him to step down. But Obama is going to use now Iran to try to convince Assad in Syria to step down. And if he doesn't go along with this, there will be blood. There will be troops on the ground. There will be an invasion of Syria. This war will go hot. We can see already that they're planning for this. We know that a doctor came over from Syria, showed photographs, and again, the photographs just show the aftermath. They don't show who actually did it. There's no proof of who actually did it. They're just showing photographs of people who are tortured, people who are poisoned. There are other photos of there in Congress showing that, there are human rights violations. But these photos show absolutely nothing. But the FBI, don't worry, is out there saying they have they've done a year-long analysis on this, and they concluded that, these photographs of torture, they're real. Just like the patsies we pay off to convince to join the Islamic State. Just like the events that we create, it's all real. Well, already with the FBI coming out telling us this, we know they're fake. We know that there is no evidence whatsoever. All they're showing are of people being tortured. It doesn't show who did it. This is the aftermath. If you're proving a case of, let's say, murder, and you show a picture of someone being murdered, this doesn't tell you who did it. This doesn't tell you the person on trial did this crime. It just shows you what happened afterwards. You need that in-between proof between how it led up to that photograph. And guess what they don't have? They don't have the proof that leads up to the photo. This has always been their major problem. Because a lot of this information is fake, phony, and false. And we can see right now they're doing whatever they possibly can to push this agenda to remove Assad. And the propaganda is flying all over the place right now because, as we know, we are getting closer to August, and still the indicators point that there is something that's going to happen during this time period. Now, things can change. We've seen it change before because, again, the central bankers, they're not perfect. They come up with a plan, they think everything is going well, and then something doesn't go their way. But right now, it seems like we are definitely headed in this direction. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.